everybody, I'm Cantonese Cat. Hey everybody, Cantonese Cat here. I'm going to go through what I think is going to happen in August, because there is a lot of fear and scares out there about what August could potentially bring as we are entering supposedly the weaker part of the seasonality. A lot of people are talking about how there could potentially be a crash or a major correction coming, and to protect your capital and all that. Let's see whether or not we're seeing that, and let's kind of go through my logic and also go through some of my scares as well. And then ultimately towards the end, we can kind of, combine all those together and try to come up with a reasonable thesis moving forward. This is the IWM. We have accomplished something that is pretty significant this week. On Friday, we closed back above the 0.786 log fib here, which we got rejected here by, in around 2 weeks in a row here. But we end up reclaiming that from resistance here, potentially to support. Now, granted, we're still not breaking above the weekly Ichimoku cloud yet. We still end up getting rejected here by the top of the Ichimoku cloud. Could end up breaking back down and going back down to the lower part of the Ichimoku cloud here is always a possibility, right? But I just want to show you, yes, we are breaking above the 0.786 here, which favors IWM to maybe close a month above the 0.786. Why is IWM important? Because it is a risk-on indicator. The really crazy frenzied bull trend that you see on a lot of small cap stocks last cycle really begun in November of 2020, when you have this God candle that just basically breaks IWM into all-time high. It's basically showing that liquidity is coming and everybody can just end up just mooning from there, like miners, small cap stocks, altcoins, everything just end up mooning up from there for about four months in a row. And next thing you know, you just enter a big giant distributed phase over here. Well, do we have that God candle that push all-time high, changes sentiment from right now being cautious, which most people are being cautious right now, into becoming more bullish and euphoric? Has IWM break into all-time highs? No, it hasn't. It is trying to still break above some of these levels down here below. Initially, back in November, we were having a chance to kind of break out. That turned out to be a little bit of a false breakout candle, because we did end up breaking about the 0.86. But guess what? At that time, we simply didn't have the Bullish band expansion to allow price action to really go up that much higher. Right now, we end up consolidating sideways over here. We end up actually touching a low Bullish band down here, tested some of these lower fib levels down here below. Extremely brutal April, right? Extremely brutal April. V-shaped recovery, and now we're looking at potentially closing about the 0.786. If we end up closing about 0.786, then I think we have a high chance of making all-time high here, sometime maybe around late 2025 to sometime around 2026. If that ends up happening, then I think euphoria is going to enter the market, and whether or not it does that hinges on whether or not it can close about the 0.786 and maybe even break about the 0.86 here for good. If we ever break about these two levels up here, then IWM is going to go a lot higher, then a lot of things are going to go berserk, right, over the next 12 months or so, if we end up being able to do that. With IWM making a V-shaped recovery, we're already having this big giant crash in liquidity grab here in April. I don't think it has to crash down again. I think this is going to be it right here. It had a very, very strong reaction. Can it go back down to the 0.618? That's always a possibility. But right now, it looks like we're favoring it potentially breaking through the 0.786 here and go a lot higher. That's what we're favoring here. Now, the other couple of things to really look at in terms of bullishness here is that really over the last few months or so, the QQQ, which represents the NASDAQ, has outperformed SPY, which represents the SP 500. Usually on a risk-on market, the QQQ outperforms the SPY. You can see that during this crazy 2020 increase in liquidity, you have the QQQ outperforming the SPY by a mile, right? When you have a liquidity crunch, when the Fed was raising rates, and basically you have a huge liquidity crunch, you end up having QQQ severely underperforming the S&P 500. Right now, we're kind of changing trend over here. We got a bullish band squeeze and it's expanding. It looks like this QQQ over SPY chart over here looks like it wants to keep going up higher. It looks like QQQ wants to continue to outperform SPY. That's not a bear market type behavior. And it looks like we're just similarly waiting for bullish band to expand. So maybe August, we have this bullish band expansion here, and this ratio is probably going to keep going up higher, signifying that a bull market is here. The other thing to look at too, now I just showed you, number one is IWM. Number two is the QQQ over SPY chart. Number three, what are we looking at here? This is the Cathie Wood's ARK fund. I have not seen ARK fund looking this impulsive since 2020. Whenever you have an upsloping 20-month moving average and a bullish band expansion on the monthly, things can go up a lot higher over time. And this seems to be a pretty good setup like it did over here before, right? So if that's the case, if ARK fund is becoming more bullish, I can't really justify to be too bearish here. Now, also just looking at the ARK over QQQ, that is also showing you that ARK fund, which is full of more high debt and more speculative companies, are outperforming the QQQ over the last few months. As you can see, that is reclaimed, this ratio of ARK over QQQ is reclaiming the 20-month moving average. And right now, the bullish band is expanding. So most likely, you're going to favor further bullish band expansion here. In August, maybe ARK is going to end up continue to outperform QQQ. QQQ is going to end up outperforming SPY. And IWM could end up breaking above the 0.786 here. There's nothing really bearish about that potential combination. One thing I also want to bring to your attention here too, in terms of why I'm bullish, and this is a very reasonable, as far as I'm concerned, very reasonable thesis, is that this is all a liquidity game. And where could the liquidity be coming from? Well, China. Look at the Chinese market here, the Hang Seng Index, which basically lists the majority of the big Chinese companies in Hong Kong. You can see the bullish band is expanding. This thing over here is looking very, very bullish because it broke above the 0.618 over here, very convincingly. And if it breaks above 0.618 over here, and also it breaks above the Ichimoku cloud here, where it's going to go to? It's going to end up going to the next level, which is going to be the 0.786. And I do think there's probably grounding up here towards this trend line over here, as well as the 0.786. I think this is where the price is going to go here for Hang Seng Index. It's been forming higher highs and higher lows. This is very, very bullish formation with 3 white soldier. It looks like it wants to just keep going higher to 28,000, and that's not going to be a bearish thing. If we end up having continuation, which I think we will, because the bullish band is going to keep on expanding here in August, allowing price to keep going up higher, then August could potentially end up being a pretty good month. We already had that liquidity grab here in April, where price went all the way down below 20,000. I don't think we have to do that again. And so far the trend is, your friend, the trend is bullish here. So that's my number 4 reason. Number 5 reason is more just trying to argue and look at Bitcoin, how Bitcoin is behaving. Bitcoin has just been forming higher highs and higher lows here. There's really not much to get that scared about. A lot of people are talking about bearish divergence, bearish divergence. Yes, it's been going up on bearish divergence. Yes, we are at an RSI trendline resistance over here. Yes, we need to break that above that RSI trendline to go a lot higher. But overall, it's been forming higher highs and higher lows. You can also see that back in the bull market here of 2015, 2017, price can just end up something just kind of just keep going up here on bearish divergence. Eventually, after bearish divergence breaks, that's when price just keep on going up higher, right? Here, you did have a lot of bearish divergence over here until the parabolic move happens, and that's when you end up breaking bearish divergence, it just end up going up a lot higher. Currently, we are looking like we want to expand higher as the market symmetry shows that Bitcoin keeps on breaking arc after arc after arc, and it looks like we're just challenging the horizontal gain level over here. With all of these things happening, the M2 liquidity, global liquidity supply here, the trend is still your friend, is still pointing up, right, until proven otherwise. We had a horizontal resistance zone over here of liquidity resistance, We broke above that, we back tested, and now we're going a lot higher. So this push upwards over here could end up, if we have continued inflow of global liquidity, could end up pushing price up a lot higher for Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin goes higher, if Bitcoin's able to kind of find where it's going to go next, then it's not a bearish thing, right? Looking at some of the other charts here, I do have a GAN here. I do think that is basically broke above this arc up here. And it broke above this horizontal is back testing. Like, there's really not much bearishness that I'm seeing here based on my chart and based on the levels that is going to. It broke above the 1.272 here, back tested it. It wants to probably ground up here to 1.4 and 4. A lot of these market symmetry type thing is telling us that Bitcoin's going up higher, but a lot of people are worried about bearish divergence. So I don't know what else to say about that. All I can say is that not only is Bitcoin looking like it wants to go higher, Bitcoin dominance looks like it's been dropping. You got a bearish engulfing candle that engulfs multiple months of price actions over here in terms of Bitcoin dominance. Now, when Bitcoin dominance drops, that's usually favorable for altcoins. That's usually favorable for a little bit more of a risk-on sentiment. And looking at Ethereum, if you are looking at my Ethereum chart that I've been showing for a very long time here, you can see one thing, which is basically Ethereum has broken back above this trend line here that broken down underneath, and we had a bearish backtest here, but right now we have conventionally reclaimed this trend line from resistance here back into support. Over the last 2 cycles, Ethereum has done that over and over again. Here it broke down, broke back up, and it just ended up being parabolic after that. Right here during COVID, broke down, ended up breaking back up here, and that ends up being the start of a parabolic bull trend up here post-COVID. Here we end up breaking down and we're breaking back above. This is actually very, very extremely bullish, because that shows that this over here is all liquidity grab before going up higher. And usually when you have something like that happens, price can actually end up just keep on shooting up a lot higher after that. When I see Ethereum breaking back above resistance here, I cannot really be all that entirely bearish here. Now, could the month of August end up breaking down and backtest that before going up higher? It could. It didn't really do that before, the time before that and the time before that. It could, and if that's the case, a lot of people could get extremely scared here in August if price end up dropping all the way down to the 3,000s or so. But does it have to do that? Not necessarily. What I'm really looking at here in terms of Ethereum, I do think that this is more just waiting for the Bullish band to expand. We were a little bit too far above the Bullish band here early in the week, and we basically just hit price action, just touched the Bullish band here. Now we're not that far overextended. Now, with the Bullish band continue to expand, that's going to allow price to keep going higher and challenge this previous high over here around 4,000. If we're able to break above 4,000, which means we're able to break above the 0.886 log fib here from cycle high to cycle low, if we're able to break above the 4,000 level and close above that, that means all-time high stuff is coming. That means Ethereum is going to do extremely well moving forward. Now, we will see if it ends up being August slump here and backtesting that. That would be a great buying opportunity in my opinion. But I don't know whether or not it's going to end up giving us the chance to do that. I do think that if we end up breaking above 4,000, what ends up happening is I do think we already have a little bit of Bollinger Band expansion here on the upper Bollinger Band, right? I do think that we end up breaking above 4,000 graphic up here to the upper Bollinger Band here and just keep going up. The lower Bollinger Band is also going to expand, and we're going to end up getting a full Bollinger Band expansion here, which generally happens during bull markets. Okay, it's been squeezing here for a very long time in terms of the monthly Bollinger Band. A bigger move is going to happen. If price looks like it's going to want to gravitate up here to go higher, if it looks like the upper Bollinger Band is expanding upwards, then you might have some pretty impulsive price action here moving forward. I just don't know exactly whether or not it's going to be in August, but this breakout is real, right? It didn't just break out above that trend line. It also break out and reclaim the 20-month moving average, which is pretty significant in my opinion. Could it backtest again? It's possible, but the trend's your friend, and with this breakout, I most likely favor further bullish continuation and ride up along the upper Bollinger Band and keep going up here. That's what I favor, and that's kind of what I'm seeing. I also wanted to show you, not everything again, but I just want to show you, I did a video about 11 stocks that are Palantiring, right? One of which is Futu. It looks at beautiful Bollinger expansion, break about the 0.86 here. I have another stock here called TIGR. It's also got full Bollinger expansion. This stock looks like they want to just keep running up a lot higher, right? SoFi is hitting 0.86 resistance, but you got a full Bollinger expansion here on the monthly. Robinhood has just been beasting, right? All these crazy fintech stocks just been beasting. Shopify is starting to experience a little bit of Bollinger expansion. It just broke about the 0.786 log fib here, and it looks like it wants to keep going higher. Affirm is got a Bollinger Band squeeze here, but it's been building up underneath here, 0.707. It looks like it wants to keep going higher because upper Bollinger Band is expanding. If it's end up pushing up higher, lower Bollinger Band is also probably going to end up expanding down lower as well, and that's also another sign that something like this could be Palantiring. And finally, one that I'm extremely bullish on is Coinbase. Is already having a Bullish expansion. Is already broken about the all-time high here. That wick is already close last month here about the 0.86. This thing looks like it wants to go higher. Something like Iron is already having Bullish expansion. Something like Galaxy is already having Bullish expansion. You got these, really speculative miner type stocks or crypto related stocks that are getting pretty bullish here, pretty decently changed trend over here, with a monthly Bollinger expansion, and people are not that euphoric about them, which to me suggests that maybe better things are to come. If it doesn't come in August, it might come in September. I personally favor it just having further bullish continuation here on a lot of these different things by showing you all of these different high risk stocks, including ARK, including QQQ, including all of these fintech stocks, Bitcoin, Ethereum, even like the whole cryptocurrency space here. There is a chart called Total 3. And what Total 3 here is basically the cryptocurrency market cap excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum. This does not look bearish here, doesn't it? You have a cup over here and a handle over here. The handle has touched the rising 20-month moving average, and looks like the upper Bollinger wants to expand here. Now, you are breaking above the 0.86 here for the Total 3 here as well. That favors for bullish continuation. Last time it broke back above the 0.86, it just simply hadn't had that bullish expansion to allow it to go up higher. Here, now we have the bullish expansion here. Closing a month about 0.86 could mean that even Total 3 or the altcoin market could go Palantiring. That is significant. Again, could August end up being a back test of that zone at the 0.86 and thus nothing? Possible. If you're talking about seasonality, possible. But overall, I just see things kind of breaking out, becoming more impulsive. And trend's your friend. I'm not going to bet against the trend. Things looking pretty decent here. A lot of folks are also worried about yield. And I don't know what to tell you. Like, I can chart yields. I can tell you what I think about yields. It's totally meaningless to me because people are using it as a narrative that, hey, if the Fed cuts rates and if yields drop, that's a bearish thing. Because that's whatever. I backtrack like the rationale of that. I actually don't really believe that that's the case every time, but people tend to use the narrative: if the Fed cuts rates, then it's going to be bearish for the market, and if the Fed doesn't cut rates, it's going to be bearish for the market. I think people just use the Fed as an excuse to be bearish. I see that yields are actually this is a 2-year yield here. It's been stabilizing, forming actually more lower high and lower low. It looks like it wants to go down lower. It looks like if the 2-year is going down, then you're going to end up having more liquidity going into the system, right? It's going to be cheaper to borrow money, and it looks like it could be happening soon. The 10-year is also looking very weak here. As you can see, that it's been forming a little bit of a distributive top over here, and the 20-month moving average is significantly losing momentum. You had a Bollinger Band squeezing over here. It could result in a trend change, and the 10-year could end up dropping from here on out. And that would, again, make borrowing cheaper. That would go along with more risk-on things being more risk-on. And then finally, if people are still worried about inflation, and they've been worried about inflation for a very long time now, even though there's not really any sign for inflation coming back, as oil has been forming lower highs and lower lows, and right now it's forming a little bit of a following 3 methods candlestick over here, where it got rejected by a negative sloping 20-month moving average. Looks like I just kind of want to go down lower. I just don't really see anything too concerning when it comes to the economy. If you want a good indicator in terms of what the economy is doing, if the QQQ outperformance, ARC outperformance, IWM about to break about the 0.786. Bitcoin looks like it's forming higher highs and higher lows and it's near all-time high. Ethereum just broke out. A lot of Palantiring high-risk stocks are showing up here. Yields look very toppy. Oil looks like it's going to drop more. What else do you want? Let's look at copper. They call this Dr. Copper for a reason. Somewhat kind of reflective in terms of what the real economy is doing, what the industrial, how do you say that? What the industrial productivity is happening. And copper looks like it's beasting. Full Bullish expansion over here. It's just absolutely beautiful, right? Hovering around the cloud for a while and just had a breakout. It's not that overextended about the tank. It looks like this thing wants to keep going higher. If this thing goes higher, just like it did back in 2020 during that big giant pump, if the overall economy, as shown by Dr. Pepper here, is doing, not Dr. Pepper, Dr. Copper here is doing well. I should probably get some Dr. Pepper soon because I'm getting a little bit sleepy. But Dr. Copper here is doing well, then the economy is going to do well. It's usually basically front running what IWM could be doing, is kind of what I'm seeing here. If copper is so impulsive here in July, unless if copper crashes and unless if we're overextended here, which we could be, right? But the trends are friend, right? Upper Bollinger expansion, lower Bollinger expansion. Copper's looking very healthy. Everything's pointing out that the second half of the year in 2025 is going to be a pretty good year. Whether or not August is bearish or not, I do not know the answer to that. I do have a few scares. First of all, ARC Fund here is hitting my GAN ARC resistance. You can see how this has been extremely beautiful in terms of market symmetry, holding 45-degree angle here beautifully, right? Right now we're at an ARC resistance here, so could August end up being a correction month? It could be, right? I'm not ruling that out. I'm just saying that the trend is your friend and things are looking pretty decent across the board. Are we overextended above the Tenkan here, above the blue line? Yes, we are. Sometimes, usually when we're above the Tenkan, things get a little bit more punishing, right? When we're above the Tenkan, usually things kind of dip down or go sideways to wait for the Tenkan to catch up. Are we overextended above the Tenkan? Certainly, right? But we're also overextended over here about the Tenkan here for a very long time, back in 2020. So that's also something to take with a grain of salt. Are we above the Tenkan here on the IWM? Not so much. Maybe a little bit overextended, but not anything crazy. Not like QQQ, not like SPY, not like ARC Fund, right? But that's something to think about here. I do want to say that if this is the parabolic phase of IWM, then it can stay overextended here for a very long time, right? If this is the parabolic phase of IWM, it can stay overextended here for a very long time. If it's the parabolic phase here for IWM, it can end up staying overextended here for a very long time. Sometimes it doesn't matter, right? Just like how if it's a parabolic downtrend, it can stay underneath and overextended away from the Tenkan here for a very long time. These things go through cycles. IWM is very cyclical, cycle 1, cycle 2, cycle 3, cycle 4, and I think we might be beginning cycle 5 here relatively soon. Whether or not August is a bullish month or bearish month, to me, doesn't matter. I would argue that August seasonality may not play out this time because we already had the huge liquidity crap here back in April. That is my argument. If it ends up correcting, that's fine. It would just be forming a higher low before things go up higher again, is what I'm seeing. A little bit of a longer video, but I just kind of wanted to share you my thoughts in terms of what I think about the overall economy, about the markets, and about what we could be seeing for the remainder of 2025, which I remain extremely bullish no matter what August does. All right, guys, take care. Bye.